Elections November the 15th. We encourage you to please go out and vote. Very pleased to be joined by Lori Mayhew. And Lori is one of the candidates running in this year's election. First off, congratulations on deciding to run, because it takes a special person to run an election. But I want to get to know more about the person behind the election sign. So tell us about your family when you were a youngster growing up with your family at home.
Okay, well, I grew up in Northern Ontario. Me and my sister, my mom and our stepdad. I moved out to BC in 1981 and got my dogwood diploma from Chemainus Secondary. Went to Vancouver, well, it's now Vancouver Island University. It was Malaspina College when I went there for a couple of years, and got my Bachelor of Commerce from UBC. Met my husband there, and the rest is history.
No kidding. When you were a youngster growing up, were you heavily involved in a variety of different sports or music or track and field or anything?
I did a little bit of everything. I played some school sports. I did some cross-country running. I did basketball. I took piano lessons, so I did some music as well. What
was life like at your home? Was it pretty chaotic as a youngster growing up? You got obviously a lot of fond memories.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, it's like anyone's life, ups and downs along the way. Not quite chaotic. My mom really liked to have everything in its place, so it was a very orderly house.
It's what my mother would say, that's life lessons. That's what you have to learn about when you grow up and you do things for your family. That's what it's all about. Yeah. So you've been living in Delta since how long?
Since '96. We moved out here with one child who was 2 at the time, and now we've got 3. So.
Oh, all right. So life has changed, obviously for you. It's changed in Delta. And you've seen a lot of change. What's the biggest change you've seen in Delta so far?
I would have to say the increase in traffic. As we see more housing in the communities around us, as well as in Delta, we see more people moving through Delta to get across the Fraser River and to work. And that impacts the quality of life we have here in Delta.
So whatever possessed you to get into run for politics? Because that's something that, you know, a lot of people say, some people say, well, I'd like to do it. And then they just sit back and say, no, maybe it was just a passing thought. I don't really want to do it. But why did you get involved?
I've actually been thinking about it for a while. And I think sort of the straw that broke the camel's back was at a public hearing in North Delta for the North Delta Community Plan, where 90% of the people spoke against the plan, and council passed it as it was presented without listening to the input that the citizens were giving. And I thought, you know, that's just not right. You know, at the very least, have a semblance of having listened to us by, you know, taking it back and seeing what staff could do with the suggestions they got. But there wasn't any of that. It was just passed. And I thought, you know what? We need a council that's going to listen to people, and I think I can do that. So
when you're talking about the area plan, what was involved with the area plan that a lot of people were against?
Well, at different major intersections down Scott Road, the plan calls for residential towers, 30 stories and above, and some, you know, the medium density townhouses or multifamily units. You know, those are fine, 6 to 8 stories, but, you know, we're doing these 30-story towers along Scott Road in isolation of whatever Surrey is doing. There's been no consultation, as far as I can tell, between Delta and Surrey. So it's going to be like this canyon wall as you drive along Scott Road. On the Delta side, we're going to have these high rises sticking up, and, you know, Surrey is going to look reasonable by comparison.
It's funny, I remember when I moved out to Delta in 1977, so yes, it's a while back. Scott Road used to be a 2-lane road. There was no restaurant open after 11 o'clock at night, and the only restaurant, and the people that will watch this, the only restaurant that was open late at night was a place called Carmen's Pizza, which was up about 92nd and Scott. Kennedy Heights was the hub. At that time. They had the Sears Clearance Center, they had the Bank of Commerce. That was huge up in that area. The Safeway, that was packed. That's where everybody lived. That part of Delta is sort of falling by the wayside, and now it seems that the hub of Delta seems to be up towards Scott and 72nd, up around Scottsdale Mall area.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's been a lot more development focused on Scott and 72nd. Unfortunately, at Kennedy Heights, that mall is owned by a private owner who doesn't appear to want to do anything with it. So how we induce him to upgrade is a big
Got to be
question.
a way we can force that, because I mean that's just, it's sort of like a dying breed up there. You've got to put some growth and life in that community, because the people up there are a lot of seniors living up in
Yep.
that area, so there's no way you should force them to leave there just to say, okay, well, I'm going to go shop at the other end and
Yeah.
leave that area, because no wonder stores are leaving. You know, they want, people want to go shopping.
Nobody goes there, so it's
Yeah.
hard to keep a business going, and the transit isn't very good up and down Scott Road. You know, it's okay, it could be a lot better. And I know the Seniors Council did a walkability study, and the sidewalks along there aren't very good, and there's not enough ramps for scooters and walkers and that sort of thing. So for someone who lives at, you know, 88th and Scott Road in that area, to get down to 72nd, it's a bit difficult for them unless they've got someone who can drive them.
Extremely. You talked about transit people, and talked earlier on about the fact that cars are leaving from Surrey and Langley and Cloverdale and going basically just through our town. 72nd's a bottleneck. Nordell's a bottleneck. They've widened it. They've actually put the dividers, which was a smart move. I like that.
Yeah.
So prevent accidents, which is a blessing in itself. 64th. Is there a way that possibly we could say, okay, well, let's move the traffic off of 72nd, because one of the biggest areas that I feel sorry for there is the school at Heath
Yeah.
Elementary. That's a real problem for a lot of the youngsters.
It is a real problem, and you know, I was driving through there one day a few years ago before they put the flashing lights for speed in, and somebody actually passed me in the parking lane because I was doing the 30K during school hours, and I just thought, that's ridiculous. You know, I don't know what we do for that poor school, whether we change the catchment area so that people don't have to cross 72nd, or you know, what else we can do for it. But yeah, and I don't see how we can take 72nd away as being a major commuter route, because it does go all the way through to, you know, 152nd. So
Yeah, that's a tough call. The new road that they put in from North Delta all the way out, the South Fraser Perimeter Road, that's clearly opening up for traffic going from North Delta all the way out to Wasson area now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take as long as it used to, which is a blessing. Do you think that'll encourage a lot more people from the south end to come shopping up in north, or the north end to go shopping down the south?
not really, because we don't know about each other. One of the things that's missing is a true community newspaper that delivers in the south and the north. You know, I don't know what stores really are available in Ladner and Tsawwassen, beyond like my vet's in Tsawwassen, and I know kind of what's around there, but beyond that, I don't know. You know, we don't get the notices of the Ladner Village Market in the summer, which would be a really nice thing to get. So for us in the north to go shopping in the south, you know, we don't know what's there, they don't know what's up here. So a true community newspaper that would advertise all of Delta is something that would help that.
A lot of environmental issues we have in Delta. One of the big ones that everybody keeps talking about, and it's been left alone for a while, is Burns Bog. Some people are saying we should take part of it and grow on it or build on it. Others are saying just leave it as pristine as it is right now. Where do you see that if you look down the road for another 10 years, just in a crystal ball? Where do you think there will be any change to that?
I certainly hope not. You know, the bog's a really important piece of our environment here, and it's been called the lungs of the Lower Mainland. Although I think it looks more like a liver, but that's a different issue.
That's a different, yeah.
You know, I think we need to keep it as pristine as possible, and we need to add to the conservancy portion of it. You know, I know there's building around, you know, the northern edge at the Fraser River, and we've got, you know, the dump on it as well. You know, let's not expand what we've built on it. Let's expand the conservancy and save as much as we can.
You've been knocking on doors, going out and telling people different issues, and you know, please vote for me on November the 15th. What's been some of the issues you've been addressed with on the different door knocking campaigns?
Well, the new bridge to replace the tunnel has been an issue, both for and against. So that's always an interesting discussion to have with people. I've seen a lot of no coal train signs, and you know, people concerned about the quality of air and their water, and just the whole living environment here in Delta.
Do you find a lot of young families, or when you're going knocking on doors, do you find majority of the families younger, or mixed, or middle age, or older people, or?
It's been a pretty good mix, actually. Young kids, seniors, middle growth families, if you will. So it's been a pretty good mix.
What's the consensus of the people when you go and knock on doors, and are they say, no, that's fine, I've already got my mind made up, or they're pretty open-minded? They're
pretty open-minded. You know, not a lot of people will come right out and say, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for you, but some do. A lot of them just want to take your pamphlet, take your information, and do some research, which is great. I like to see that people get involved with their decision making.
Were you surprised that no one ran against Lois Jackson? that she get it by acclamation?
Yes and no. You know, she did announce that it would be her last term, so I think there might have been a few people who just went, I'll wait till the next one,
yeah.
you know, and then there'll be open season when she doesn't run again. So, you know.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one the next time around.
Yeah,
you surprised the number of candidates running for the election this time in 2014?
No. I look at some of the surrounding municipalities and I see, you know, there's 30 people running for
Yeah.
8 or 10 seats, and I think, oh, okay, 13 for 6 is not that bad. You know, the flip side of it is obviously not a lot of people are interested, so that's a concern that, you know, we seem to be losing interest in how our cities run.
So how do we change the mindset to get people out? Number one, to get people out and vote, and number two, part of that question is, should the council be a little more open to the public as to hearings, and if people want to have their concerns and voices heard, other than sending a note and sending it down to, you know, City Hall and letting somebody just look at it and say, yeah, fine, we'll let them deal with it next week. Be a little more transparent, I guess.
Yeah, I think more accessible, more transparent. You know, some people have asked about, well, we should move the meetings around all the time so they're in the different municipalities, and I actually don't think that's a good idea. People like to know where and when the meetings are, and then it just becomes a routine for them to go. What we need to do instead is bring the councillors out to the communities and have meetings with members of the community in their communities, like go to Sunbury Hall and talk to people. No agenda, no staff, no big rigmarole, just here I am, your city councillor, come and talk to me and tell me what your issues are and let me see what I can do for you.
No, that's true. With me being heavily involved in sports, what's your take on the different facilities that we have in Delta? Do you think we could do or make changes, or do we have enough facilities? And if we want to make changes, what would be number one on your list that you'd like to see, sort of like a wish list?
My wish list. First thing I'd like to see happen is have Mackey turf replaced. It's outlived its useful life, and you know, you can't use it in all weather anymore, so we really need to replace that. We need to upgrade some of the grass fields so that they drain properly and they're not just mud pits in the middle of the soccer season. And the one thing that surprised me, my son was playing ball hockey last season, and the closure of the Ladner Leisure Centre with the repairs that had to happen really impacted the schedule of all the teams. And it was amazing to me that taking one dry surface out of the mix had such a big impact. So I think we need to look at the number of dry surfaces we have and maybe make some sort of year-round dry surface available for some of those sports.
No argument for me. I agree with that. I think that we do not clearly have enough dry floor space at all, because you could get people using it year-round. I see the outdoor lacrosse boxes. They're there. They're not used in the wintertime due to the weather conditions. And I don't blame the groups not wanting to use them.
Yeah.
Who wants to go and practice lacrosse in the middle of wintertime?
Yeah.
Outside in the
rain.
rain. You know,
well,
it makes no sense.
Not for lacrosse, but for soccer, sure.
For soccer, that's fine. You know, that's perfectly fine. That's a different sport. But, you know, we see it. Last question, what do you see or what do you think could happen down the road as far as development for John Oliver Park off Highway 10?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that park because it's, I think, used mostly for football and rugby, and those aren't sports that we're involved with. But I do understand there's some traffic issues around the entrance, so we would need to take a look at that. And, you know, the safety of the players and the parents is paramount, and we need to make sure that the facility is up to snuff that way. No,
that's very, very true. I'll give you last word. I will get you to look at your camera, which is the one over to my right shoulder, and tell the people why they should vote for Lori on November the 15th.
Excellent. So you should vote for me, Lori Mayhew, and the rest of Delta Connect on November 15th, because we bring a fresh perspective to Delta Council. We want to hear what you want for your community, and we want to incorporate that. We want to find creative solutions to the traffic and transit issues in Delta, and we want to protect the environment. So when you go on November 15th to mark your ballot, please vote for Lori Mayhew and Delta Connect. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Laura. Appreciate you coming in.
Great. Thanks very much.
All the best in the upcoming election.
Thank you.
November 15th, mark the date in your calendar. Please make sure that you go out, exercise your prerogative, as my mother would say. Go out, make sure that you vote.